One of the things that video game RPGs have over tabletop RPGs is they control all of the pacing. From the beginning of the narrative to the end of the narrative, they're in control of all of the flow. They have each lever in each dungeon, each level, each boss fight. Sure, sometimes they use their powers for evil, and they show you a bunch of potential choices, but really they're just going to railroad you to one ending, one story point, because they don't have enough money or whatever the reason is to develop multiple outcomes. We can leave the bad and take the good, and one of the things that they're very good at is engaging boss design fights. It is very hard as a dungeon master to create an engaging boss fight, because we don't have control over all the levers. We can't control whether we roll natural one after natural one after natural one. We can't control whether the players over there roll crit after crit after crit. And the players don't really care about pacing in the same way. They want to experience a nail-biting, engaging boss fight, but they're going to make tactical decisions to maximize their life expectancy, not for story purposes. But just because you can't get to an S-tier boss fight doesn't mean that you shouldn't try. An A, a B, or even a C is way better than a D boss fight that is just a meat bag with a lot of damage. There's lots of different boss fights you could do. You could do some sort of a swarm fight where there's no one big creature, there's just a lot of little creatures. And the fight becomes, how are you going to survive with this many creatures coming at you? Maybe you're on sky islands or at the bottom of the ocean or inside a volcano. And really the environment is what's making this different and interesting and how you're going to use that to defeat the boss. Or maybe you do some sort of a trio or a duo and they're equally matched enemies and the players have to figure out what's good for our party. Should we deal with the caster first or should we deal with the Death Knight first? How are we going to do that? Maybe we should all bomb the caster first, but then how are we going to deal with the Death Knight just slashing one person up and destroying them? There's also gimmicky fights where it's like, let's use the catapult or the ballista to deal with that ancient dragon. Or maybe the ancient dragon is way above our levels and we're trying to escape the town while he's burning it down around us. Or fights where you have to protect a specific thing like a portal and you're trying to repair it or prevent some sort of ancient evil coming through and rising up. So you have to kill certain cultists or you have to protect them over a certain amount of time. There's also just the big bad. These are fights with ancient dragons, with demon lords and elder liches. Those are going to make up the bulk of most boss fights. And they're really about the power that this boss can bring to bear more than anything else. Just like in any form of storytelling, we want to start strong. There's a couple ways we can do that. We can do it through our description. You follow the chasm down through the very rocks of hell, the stinging brimstone-laden smoke burning at your lungs, making it hard to draw a full breath. You find yourself almost tripping into a massive chasm in a great natural cave carved from the hell rock. There below you can hear a heart beating. Ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. Then something starts emerging. Hear it grabbing as it pulls itself out of the rock. Two massive wings, each the size of a sailing ship, unfurl as one head, then two, till 5 colored dragon heads, each one of them with burning red eyes staring straight at you for your presumption to dare disturb the sleep of Tiamat. Or we could start with a big attack. You burst through the door, ready to take the fight to Vecna and stop his foul ritual, but the ancient mage is prepared for you. As you charge forth, voids open, portals into space through which you see 5 meteors streaking through about to collide with your party. Roll initiative. Or you could try a penultimate boss encounter. Baba Yaga calls from the ether, "If you want to meet with me, you'll have to deal with my doorman first." Her hut rips one giant chicken leg out of the earth, then another giant chicken leg as it rises up, giant talons, each as large as Death's size. One thing I'd be very wary of is a monologue, because unlike TVs and movies, we have players here, and they're going to see that as an opportunity to get a drop on this person. If you are going to do it, I would make sure that the players know that whoever this villain is, Baba Yaga, Vecna, Tiamat, is ready for a fight. As you burst through the door, Vecna turns to a spell half completed in his hands, ready to unleash it at a moment's notice. "Things need not come to blows between us. You are useful, resourceful. I admire that. Come and join me in my new world." All else being equal, planning one giant big attack is a good idea anyway. You have something as your opening move so that you can spare your brain power thinking about everything else. What the other players are doing, who's going first, get them on the initiative order. What spell is that? No, that doesn't work the way that you think it is working. And yeah, you cast that 4 rounds ago, so you don't still have that buff up. So no, doing all that and still having our open move means that we're not going to slow things down right out the gate. I like to start with something that's going to put 1, maybe 2 characters into a very dangerous situation. Not lethal. I don't want them having make death saves in round 1, but I do want to try to get them to rethink whatever strategy they entered into the dragon's lair with. As dungeon masters, we're caught between 2 difficult positions. On one side, if we make the fight too difficult and feel like it's trying to one-up the players and undo any plans they had, they will start to see us as antagonistic dungeon masters. And we're not supposed to be that. If we wanted to win, we could win. But that's not fun because we were always in control of everything. We could have just dropped a battler on a level 2 party and said, look, I win. Did you really? Is this the feeling that you want out of this game? On the other side, if we don't make it challenging to the players, they won't feel engaged. Being in control of a situation all the time, every time, that's not exciting. You need an ebb and a flow to this. You need to feel like sometimes the tables have turned, but that can also feel like you are just trying to be malicious in undoing the player's good plans. That's one of the reasons that I like to write down my first couple moves in advance. Once I've gotten past that first attack, I start lowering things down. This is where I would use things like the rapier attacks and the weaker attacks from bosses, or I would start to prep things for when I'm going to need to get to the next big attack. That's why a lot of my bosses have something that doesn't do a lot when I just put it out in the field, ads, or they have some spell that is an area effect that's, kind of like the grasping tentacles spells, those things where it's like, okay, that we'll just avoid that. What's the problem? Until later on, when I can combo that with something that causes it to do a lot of damage, and all of a sudden they're regretting that they left that behind. Eventually, it's time for the climax of the fight, and we need to get to the players to their lowest so that they can then get to their highest and defeat the boss and then get out of the fight and on with the rest of the adventure. This is where I would try to do something that is going to put a character in mortal peril. It is possible that this character dies. Again, I am not guaranteeing it, but this is where I would have my dragon go over, grab the cleric, fly 200 feet in the air, and drop them to get the players back to a position where they feel like all the tables have turned. We thought we had a handle on this. We don't anymore. People are unconscious. People are at low hit points. We don't know what the boss's hit points are. Should we try to escape? Should we try to finish this? Is this going to be a total party kill? That'll be where you get the feeling from a video game where the boss is at 5%, 2 players alive, and somehow they manage to pull a rabbit out of their hat and still kill the boss. That's when it feels the most heroic. If you made it this far in the video, then now's my opportunity to use my persuasion skills to convince you to go down there and give the video a like and possibly to subscribe to the channel. If you are already subscribed to the channel, then a massive thank you from me. It helps me to satisfy my dark master, the YouTube algorithm. Sorry, what? This is the stat block from Arister Lockwood, my boss from my Curse of Shadows adventure. If I was running it again, I would write down 2 possible boss attacks to start off the encounter. One if the players did more than 40 damage before the lair got to go, and one if the lair didn't get to go. If you start off and they did more than 40 points of damage when the lair goes, per Arister's abilities, there are now 2 shadows running around, and I would use the lair's Blessing of Shadows to convert those 2 shadows into 1 shadow demon. The players don't know how many hit points they have, so they're definitely going to be reconsidering whatever strategy they came into the room with. 2 shadows was bad enough, but now there's a whole shadow demon here. Should we turn and go focus on that? And what's Arister going to do while he's just left on his own devices? If the players didn't go before the lair has no action. So I want to put a player in a dangerous situation. I would use the Eldritch Blast, both attacks on 1 player to try to put them in danger. So they go, whoa, wait, he can Eldritch Blast people? Okay, that's going to move us around. We have to reconsider everything that we're doing. Then I would use the Curse of Light ability on a legendary action to start the ramp up. The buildup that I'm going throughout the fight focuses on 2 legendary actions. One is the Growing Shadows and the other is Curse of Light. The players are going to figure out pretty quickly that when he casts Growing Shadows and creates this ball of darkness, that if they stand in there, they're taking damage and they can't see anything. Sure, they could cast the light spell as a cantrip and then use a bonus action spell like Healing Word, but how many of those can they really do? And is that an efficient use of their time and of their action economy? So they might leave a few of these things up. Then you have the Curse of Light that is going to seem like it's kind of helping them out. Sure, they get disadvantage when they're in light, but then I can just go stand in this patch of darkness. I could remove Curse, but I only have so many of those. Am I really going to spend a lot of that spell slot getting rid of that when I could do damage or something else with it? So how about you just stand in the patch of darkness? Eventually, the Curse of Light is going to be on a few players. Once you've got 2 or 3 players in a patch of darkness, that's when I class Collapsing Darkness. And now the players are going to panic because you just did a ton of damage to people that are standing in the darkness. And what they thought they understood about the fight has just been reversed. We thought this curse was just going to be this thing that kind of made it inconvenient for us to stand in the light and make it more appealing for us to stand in this area where you could do a bit of damage to us. And all of a sudden, no, it's not. It's a place that you could kill us. Maybe now's the time that I cast Remove Curse on the fighter so they can just go ham and hopefully end this person while I desperately try to keep the wizard alive. I try to get rid of patches of darkness while the rogue tries to figure out what he's going to do while he can take stealth in this darkness, but he can't take it out there. Is he going to kill these demons? How are we going to deal with everything now knowing that the darkness is both our salvation and our end? What we're trying to do in a boss fight is get that giddy feeling that we scrape by the skin of our teeth, that nobody else could have done this, that everything went this right way. No other group of players would have accomplished what we had just accomplished. If you've ever played an MMO or another cooperative setting where you come together and you raid a giant boss, and you get to that point where the boss has 5% hit points and 2 people are left standing, and somehow they manage to pull a rabbit out of their hat, Discord is going to go nuts. And that is a huge adrenaline rush and a thing that gets people coming back to those kind of raid activities over and over and over again. And that's one of the things that we can use in our Dungeons and Dragons game to hook a player to get them wanting to come back to the table to see what's going to happen next. It's also the hardest thing for us to do because we aren't in control of everything. Players are probably going to feel good about it anyway because they don't know ever how close they were to victory or defeat until the boss dies. And they don't know if the next round it was going to be a meteor swarm that wiped them all out. They will feel good about their chances as long as there is an idea, a hint that threat was there, that things could have gone badly. It's something that's worth aiming for, even if we don't get there. Because those magical times where it does happen, and you do manage to get a boss fight that is both engaging, dynamic, and gets them out by the skin of their teeth, is going to make a memorable session at the game and get the players coming back time and time again so that your games can continue. Until next time, Dungeon Masters, remember, you're a player too. Try to have some fun.